Hi, this is Aion, and I'll be showing you how to graft together the two ends of the Aion cowl. This is the end that we've just finished, and we've ended one round before the end of the chart, and you can see most of the triangles have 2 rounds with a single stitch of the upward facing triangle color, and this last round we did only has a single round with 1 stitch of the upward facing triangle color. And I've already gone ahead and I've undone the provisional cast on, put all the stitches back onto needles, and I've slipped 50% of the stitches so that the needles are coming out the opposite end as this. So you can see right now there's no twist, and to add a twist in before grafting, all we need to do is flip this end over, and now both needles are at the same end. There's that twist in there, and we're ready to line everything up to get started grafting. To graft these two ends together, we're going to take a third circular needle and put all the stitches from both this needle and this needle interlocked onto one needle, and we're going to make sure the stitches are in the correct order that they need to be in for the pattern to line up precisely. And this means that when we actually do the grafting, we don't have to worry at all about the pattern lining up because we've already ensured that's going to happen. And I also personally find it a lot easier to just deal with one set of needles at a time instead of all of these at once. So let me show you how we're going to do that. Now, what I find easiest to be certain the pattern's going to be lined up properly is to take the center stitch, the top of this triangle, and make sure it's lined up directly across from the top of the triangle on the other side. And you'll see that on this side, the top of the triangle is centered on 1 stitch, and on this side, the center of the triangle is centered between 2 stitches, and that's going to work out perfectly because we're going to pick up 1 stitch from each side one at a time, and we want to make sure we pick up these 3 stitches in this order: 1, 2, 3. So I've gone ahead and lined up all my other stitches, but you can also kind of just count backwards. So we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we know we want to pick up this stitch first in order to have this properly aligned. And I'll go ahead and pick these up to here, and then we'll just double check that we're on the right track before going any further. Okay, so we can see it's lining up exactly how we want it. The center stitch at the top of this triangle is directly lined up with the top of this. And we're going to go all the way around, and all of the stitches will end up on this needle. And as you go, you can be sure that the stitches are aligning properly, just like this, the whole way around. All right, we now have all of our stitches ready to graft on a single needle. You'll see this goes all the way around, and then we just have one set of needles. And you can take a second now, double check everywhere that these triangles are lined up properly, and we can get to grafting. So if you've done tubular bind-offs before, you're just going to be doing this grafting exactly the same as you would at the very end of a tubular bind-off. And to be able to start just like I am, we're going to want to make sure this first stitch is coming from the front fabric. If your first stitch is coming from the back fabric, it's not a problem at all. Excuse me. Just slip one stitch onto the other side so that we can all start in the same orientation here. So if you've done grafting on 2 needles, the motions here are going to be very familiar to you. And like I said, if you've done this grafting on 1 needle before, sometimes in other instructions they have you put the 2 sides together, or like I said, tubular bind off, it'd be exactly like this. This is going to be very familiar to you. So we're going to start with the first stitch on the needle, go through knitwise, slip it off, go to what is now the second stitch on the needle, go through purlwise, go through, and pull your tail. Now we're going to go through the first stitch on the needle purlwise, slip it off, and then from the back go into the second stitch on the needle knitwise, and pull the tail through. And all you need to do is repeat those 2 actions until all of the stitches have been dealt with. And then I'll also show you at the end when you have just 2 stitches left what you can do just to make that little end bit as neat as possible. But I'll show this to you a couple more times. And you can always remember, if the first stitch is the side that's facing you, we're going to start knitwise. If the first stitch is the back side, we're going to start purlwise. So here we're going to go knitwise, slip off, purlwise, pull through. And as you start making these stitches, you want to pull them so this little bit is about the same size as each of these little stitches, so it'll match perfectly. But you gotta get a bit done before you can check that. Purlwise from the back, get that one knitwise, pull through, gently tug, knitwise, purlwise, purlwise, knitwise, so again, say I had to set this down for a minute and came back, I know I'd start knitwise here because the first stitch is this front fabric. Knitwise, purlwise. And this is a tip if you don't already do this. I like to have this nice and stuck out of the way so my tail doesn't get caught on that. When you've gotten to the last 2 stitches that remain, you'll start just as you normally would. Knitwise, slip off, but then because the other stitch is one you already did at the very beginning. Oh. You can just go through it like that. And this stitch we're going through purlwise. I know it fell out, but so let's go through it purlwise and connect back over to this stitch. Anyway, you really want to do that, but you can just mimic last couple stitches. Pull it tight. That one stitch got stretched out, but what we can do is just use this end when we go to weave it in and kind of secure that down, and that will be right where it folds, so it'll be difficult to notice. And now we have the whole way around seamed. Just like that. Okay, I just went and quickly steam blocked this seam, and how the stitches were a bit slanted immediately after that graft was done. You can see it doesn't take much for them to be all right in the same orientation. It's already even hard to tell where the seam is. It's this line here. And on my other sample, I just left it exactly like that because with all the different colors, it was really basically impossible to see where that seam was. But I will have another video where I'll show you how to duplicate stitch over this stitch and that stitch, and then this entire section will be identical to every other section to make that seam 100% invisible.